Are you curious about discovering ways of making your life better? Then welcome to my podcast. I'm Bob Nickman, and this is The Exploding Human. Listen in while I talk with all kinds of people in the fields of personal growth, health and healing, alternative therapies, psychology, spirituality, environment, and the future. I'm looking for those answers that make life better for everyone. You'll meet cutting-edge practitioners, doctors, artists, filmmakers, business people, and those who have overcome challenges. The brave, the curious, anyone who is out there helping us humans to explore, expand, and explode. Hey, thanks for listening to The Exploding Human. I'm Bob Nickman. Great to be here. And meditation is the topic today with a woman named SADIE ADAMS. And I was turned on to her by a friend of mine who says, you've got to check this person out. This is, I've done some other podcasts on meditation. This is another way to go with it. And it was a great talk with her. She's incredibly interesting person. I don't want to give away too much, but some of her childhood really informed her becoming someone who was an explorer and adventurer in the world of meditation and consciousness. And she's spent a long time studying this kind of stuff. She knows a lot about child development. I learned about something which I had no idea existed called embryology, which is the study of embryos pre-conception to 8 weeks, and there's and how that affects us later on in life. What goes on in those before we're even conceived, all the way in through the womb up to 8 weeks old. That was a pretty interesting thing. I had never heard any of this stuff, so I really enjoyed that piece of it. And we talked a lot about how belief systems get installed in us and how we can change those belief systems through meditation and some of the other work she does. And then we kind of ended with talking about skincare, because she does have a skincare business in addition to this meditation. And it's a whole, I don't want to get into it too much because it really ties in very much to the embryology and the meditation. And I have to say, as a walking endorsement for whatever she's doing with skincare, she looks about 20 years younger than her actual age, which I'm not going to say. So anyway, listen to this podcast. This is SADIE ADAMS. Hi, SADIE.
Hello, Bob.
It's so good to be here. Let me see. Yeah, that's working.
You feel good in the space?
I love your house, and there's a beautiful stone fireplace that we're looking at, or at least I'm looking at it. And this is where you do your meditation circle, is what you would call it?
Yes, it's a meditation circle.
And I wanted to come Monday night, but the wind scared me. I couldn't leave the house. I was like, I'm going to go, and then I went. It's just, I'm so spoiled living in California that strong wind and a little bit of cold makes me go, I'm not leaving.
You didn't know about the fireplace.
I didn't know. Had I known, I may have braved, the 1.6 mile drive to your house.
Well, I'm so glad that you're here now.
Thank you. So, our mutual friend Sonny told me about you, and he said something like, you've got to come to this meditation. It's, he probably used a word like awesome or rad, which is fine. That's him.
Room for interpretation.
Yeah, right? It's yeah. So the interesting thing about meditation is we're going to talk about something that you can't really talk about in a sense. It's sort of a nonverbal personal thing, although we're going to try.
Yeah, and that's a great segue into the style of meditation that we're exploring in this room, because we're looking at our bodies as part of the first way we're communicating. So that language isn't really what we're going for, as we know it to be in the society. So movement as the first language and embodiment as a way of perception.
Okay, so let's say I did not make it to the class. If I were to come to this circle, this class, whatever you want to call it, what would the first thing that you would say to me or the group of people? What are we lying down? Are we sitting? Are we jumping up and down, loosening up? How do you do it? How do you do it?
Private sessions are all very different.
Okay.
So the group that happens, they circle up. Many of the people are coming regularly and for many years now. So it has a self-regulating quality to it. And it's not about me, although I'm facilitating. So I sit and the people sit. And then as we come closer to the opening of the circle, it starts to get quiet. And then I will welcome the circle and introduce myself and speak about my intention for having the circle, being something along the lines of opening the home to cultivate community and to learn about facilitation and embodiment and create a space for a conversation having to do with learning about the ways in which we're being influenced and how our choices are being influenced. So in essence, we're studying about freedom.
Okay. Good topic.
Freedom, free will.
So are you talking about the forces in the world that may take us off a more spiritual path? That kind of a thing? That distractions?
Contrasts. Yeah. So how we're being influenced by consensus consciousness, by the media, perhaps by our own belief systems, even our own emotions.
That's all part of it. Yeah. So what are you is there actual, is there music and actual meditation, or is it talk?
Oh, you're looking at the drum and the...
I am looking at the drum, yeah.
So then we take a moment to hear from everyone that's made the choice to show up in that circle, to create that circle, and hear from them what they're working on, what their intention is, either for being in that circle or what they're working on, holding for themselves in their lives. Any questions that they have, any thoughts or insights from the week, and any intentions in terms of what they want to talk about tonight. And then we say our names and go around the circle. And usually at that point, certain patterns are highlighted. And at the end of the people sharing, I talk about what was highlighted.
Okay, so you're watching, listening to themes that kind of emerge for that evening. And they probably are very similar because, we sort of move as a collective group of people.
Yeah, informed by each other and what each other is saying. And that we're looking to cultivate listening skills and embodiment practices. And so many of the shares are unique in their stories, not in their patterns.
Okay.
So the patterns are all very clear, and so the patterns are what I usually speak to before we meditate.
Are there certain things that you see that are really prevalent lately in your groups? You don't have to be specific about a person or anything like that, but is there things going on? Is there, for me, I see a lot of people that are kind of afraid. Some of it stems from what's going on politically, but I see a lot of people very shaky and unsure about what the next move is. Maybe I'm just projecting my own.
You're looking at you. I'm starting to feel...
No, myself. I'm saying I'm
fear.
projecting what I'm thinking. No, I'm not, but I'm not afraid right this minute.
Not yet, anyhow.
No, not yet.
So that's the point.
Put the mic a little closer. So yeah, see? See, very strong and good. I like that.
The point is that
I'll cut that part out.
Are
okay, start again.
Okay, where are we? Fear. So we're just saying that you're not afraid, yet there are aspects of your energy system that maintain that as a base. So what we were just sharing before you got here in the private session was about this contrast or the schism between the conscious and the subconscious. and becoming so compassionate and non-judgmental that we can actually see what's going on in our energy systems. So fear is certainly one of the most prevalent patterns in our society, and there's various ways and nuances to how that is expressed relationally. And so we do spend some time clearing that and bringing that forward.
So is there you're guiding an actual meditation, I'm assuming, after this talking and these seeing what the group is kind of doing, and music?
So
I'm just trying to find, I should have come Monday night. See, I wouldn't have to ask these questions. But also, somebody listening might go, well, wonder how she does it. I've done a couple interviews on meditation, different types. So this is a new one. Which, by the way, I have to say, meditation is probably one of the greatest things I've found in life.
In what way has it been supportive for you?
Well, I like that it is a period of time that I shut the world out and I can shut off my mind and just feel like I felt when I was a little kid, just sort of sensing that I'm part of something bigger than myself, and realizing that the issues as I move through the world are probably not very important. I mean, I have to do them to survive, but they don't seem to be ruling me like they would if I wasn't meditating. I just feel good. I get up, I meditate on the floor, laying down. I find that to be the best for me. And when I get up, I just feel better, and I feel connected to something more important than just me.
And part of what you're highlighting is also the contrast of you having a little bit of space between what you're normally influenced by and actually feeling a little bit more inside your body or yourself, and therefore being able to track your consciousness and as you move into the various aspects of your day and feel that contrast moving forward relationally.
You know what, as you were just talking, I just got this sort of an image of the meditating helps me to drop my armor that I wear during the day as I move around a lot. If I could maybe have that be dropped when I'm moving around during the day, that might be even more interesting, but I feel like I put it up a lot, but when I'm meditating, it's not there. And I think that's what I really like about it.
Having armor is a testament to being at effect of the stimulus in the world. And what we're looking to do is to create enough awareness, non-judgment, and spaciousness to be able to be causal.
Say what that means exactly.
So the armor is not so necessary because we're radiating from a place of support. So the energy is actually moving from our center outward rather than from the world inward. And that changes a lot of things. It's a relationship to presence.
And you're less reactive.
Yeah, more time to respond from a place of support.
Excuse me. Where, how did you come to meditation? And I know it's your part of your life's work, but like when you were a kid, were you what was that like, and usually what I find is that people come to things because they have to. They aren't necessarily, maybe they're part of them is born into it, but maybe it's kind of the wounded become the healers. So do you want to talk about that? Is there something cool back in the past that may have steered you toward this work?
I feel that's true for many, and in my own case, a lot of early initiations in terms of my development. So I was a gifted child and not recognized as such through the society standards. So seen as a scapegoat, a problem, and there were a few people along the way that taught me about meditation, first time in 4th grade as kind of a behavioral management. And many challenges as a youth. Many challenges.
Do you want to elaborate or no?
I
don't know you well enough, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I have stories that aren't informing my present moment the way that they have in the past.
Good.
That have to do with this differentiation from the norm and very different upbringing than most.
Okay. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, I interrupted. When you say you were gifted, what would you say was that? How did that look?
I was raised in New Mexico. That was a gift in and of itself in a certain way. And I feel New Mexico is one of the poorest states in the Union. First of all, Albuquerque, where I'm from, is the largest border town of any other city in the country. And it was a different life than the life that I went on to be exposed to on the East Coast in New York City. And I feel that if I was raised by a certain standard of living in New York, that I would have been supported in a different way, maybe sent off to a boarding school. And instead it looked a little bit different, like a publicly funded mental institution, medicated. And there they did test my IQ, and it tested very high, yet the answer was medication and not education, not any difference in kind of approach there. So that's part of my experience.
No, that's intense. I mean, you were acting out or perceived as acting out in a certain way, and they wanted to stop that in some way or manage it.
And it's just like we're all doing what we can with what we're given, and there's a certain way in which we all have our own karma. So it's not like it should have happened a different way. It was certainly a different experience.
Yeah.
Being incarcerated as a child and medicated.
Wow. I didn't know that was going to be the answer to the question.
Keep on digging, Bob.
Well, I love that stuff because I that's what I find is that people, I came to a lot of the stuff I came to because of my childhood. So I understand that, I mean, there was a lot of times I was told to, settle down, don't get too wild, be careful about what you're saying, you're going to get in trouble. My dad used to say to me, boy, that mouth of yours is going to get you in big trouble. And all it's ever done is, sort of create a job for me. So, who knows? But also, I mean, growing up in certain eras, I was a kid in the 50s and 60s, and it was different. It was, the whole country was very sort of proper and serious in a lot of ways, at least in the subculture I grew up in. So if you were a little bit off the norm, you were, considered, a problem like you're talking about.
Yeah, it challenges other people's energy systems, and they're not able to understand that. So,
I mean, when I was a kid, since we're talking about meditation, I never heard of it. Did not even enter into the world that I grew up in. No, I didn't know anyone that did it. I didn't know what it was. I mean, maybe I saw a movie of like a Buddhist in another country. That was about it. It wasn't something, we did. It wasn't part of it. And now it's just like a normal part of the world.
It's a beautiful time that we live in. There's a lot more light and possibility and choice coming forth, and times are changing.
I hope so. It feels like it.
We can observe it.
Yeah.
We don't have to hope.
Yeah. I mean, it almost feels to me sometimes like there's, somebody put it to me really interesting because I was saying, well, there's so much sort of darkness and hopelessness with a lot of situations, but that the people who are trying to do, meditation types of things, spiritual things, that if they're vibrating at a higher level, it can counteract some of that negativity and darkness.
Or bring it to the surface in others.
Seems like it, yeah. Oh, that's an interesting way to look at it. like the contrast of somebody seeing that may make them rebel a little bit and bring it out and have it sort of
highlighted in their own system.
yeah. So people, so you do this group and then you also do private meditations.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like it's almost like a psychology mixed with it almost sounds like there's a psychology aspect to it.
Yeah, mixed with embodiment, movement, and beauty.
What kind of movement?
I'm trained in body mind centering and yoga, and so part of the next phase of the meditation circle has to do with a guided embodiment meditation, and we focus on developmental anatomy and awareness in the body and cellular breathing and the movement to migratory patterns of the cells and the fluids in the body. And it doesn't require cognitive understanding of anatomy. It's more of a transmission from body to body. And that can help people become more aware of their energy systems. So the combination of the conversation and the embodiment seems to give people enough tools to be able to go and have their own experience and then come back and talk about it. And then we learn from each of our sharing about the progression of the application of some of these techniques.
Oh, so it's kind of like you come in here and then you go out for like the week and do your week and come back and report and see how maybe some of these techniques or the knowledge you might get helps you, or how you start to move differently in the world.
Integrate. So we can start by sharing that there was a technique developed within the context of this circle about how to release judgment. And it came up through a conversation, such as I just explained. And then we decided as a group that we were going to work on becoming more aware of our judgment without judging it. So we did that for a couple of weeks. And then we added an aspect, an application of more awareness to certain patterns along the judgment, to preferences, and that led us into becoming aware of our attachment to form. If this, then that, things should be a certain way, and this kind of thing. So then we started to work on disidentifying with perception, sensory information, and without disassociating from it, so that we're actually able to be more present and not so having to personalize everything and understand and strategize everything. So
yeah, that stuff is exhausting.
It takes a lot of
really
energy.
does.
And this is what we're talking about, like these less than optimal dynamics that we're running constantly in our subconscious that we don't want to see.
Yeah, sometimes sometimes I'll meet other people and I feel like they're doing a lot of that, like more than me in that moment, and it makes me really sort of uncomfortable. If like, I'm not that I'm any evolved beyond anybody else, but in the moments where I feel sort of good, just being, and if I had something this morning where I was working out down at the beach, and I started talking to this woman's child came over and was standing about 6 inches from me. She was about maybe 2, just watching me exercise, just completely present, really close. And the woman came over and goes, "Oh, I'm sorry she's invading your space." And I go, "No, it's totally fine." I love that about kids. They don't care. They don't have the social norms that dictate. She just wanted to stand close to me and watch me. I was totally fine with it. I said, "But can you imagine if you were the one," I said to the mother, "if you were the one working out and I walked over and sat 6 inches from you and started staring at you, you'd call the police," which would probably be the appropriate thing to do. But it's interesting because this little child her energy was just, it's so pure because she's just, fresh on the earth. Everything's brand new. And I was just thinking, as I was looking at her, and I think that's why people always smile when they see children. It reminds them, or it connects them with the purity of just, being.
It was really interesting this week because I was invited by one of our community members to facilitate at Realm for the children over on Pico and 4th. And I went with a woman who's mentoring with this work, and it was really, really intense to sit with the children in this way. There's a lot of information working with the kids, and so I'm still processing that experience, and I'm curious about the way in which we have this perception of the kids being the innocent, and yet they also carry with them the fear.
Well, how old were they?
They were 6, 7. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they've got plenty of it already.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Big difference from like 2 to 6.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of stuff that comes in.
Yeah. And yet, even as we're born, there's an innate fear of our own parents.
Yeah.
And therefore, sometimes hatred of our own parents.
I did. Yeah. I remember doing this.
It's like if we're incarnate at all, we're subject to this culture seated in fear. So it's interesting.
I remember doing what was I doing? It was some sort of I think I had done some hypnosis, some hypnotherapy, not like, and I think it was, I'm trying to remember anyway, I was somehow they took me into my mother's womb when I was before I was born, and I could see the apartment that my parents lived in, and I don't know if it's accurate or not, but that it was kind of sparse, and my dad wasn't there because he was traveling, and I knew that, but the overwhelming thing was how scared my mother was to be alone, with not my dad not there and pregnant. And I remember just feeling it, like, and I went, "Oh, that makes a lot of sense." It explained a lot. It was an interesting moment to be, now I can't prove any of that stuff, but it's a feeling, it's a sense, it was.
Early childhood development is very potent. I mean, we learn so much in the first year, and then also what we study in the teacher circles here. So once a week, we also have circles for facilitators, where we'll talk about what happened on Monday night in the large circle, or there'll be a different topic about embodied anatomy, and we look at embryology and how we grew ourselves and how these early patterns can offer us an opportunity to repattern any perceptions around relationships.
Now, where did you study this stuff? No, I it's a lot to take in. It's a lot of information. Where did you study this? Where did you learn? I'm sure some of it's just on your own through curiosity.
You said that you had an opportunity to look on the website of the Body Mind Centering. And
yeah,
so
I saw that part, yeah.
My teacher and dear friend Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen got interested in embryology in 2004, and I had been studying with her for many years prior to that. So I went on that journey with her with the embryology, and it took me a couple of years to really be fully committed to that study. It was kind of like, when is she going to get over this? It's a lot of information, a lot to take in.
And embryology is what?
We're looking at preconception to about 8 weeks.
How would you even be able to look at that?
One way is by buying an embryology and anatomy book. Dr. Netter has a beautiful one, and there are about 5 or 6 publications of drawings and.
Well, I get that part of it, but the no, that part I get. That's easy. It's the meditation, like what I explained to you. How are you looking at that stuff too? Like the emotional life of an embryo?
Yes,
That's what I'm talking
yes,
about. Who's figuring this stuff out? That's pretty amazing to me.
There's a way in which it's amazing only because we haven't had the conversation yet.
Yeah. We're having it now.
Mind blown.
Yeah. Well, this is the kind of stuff I love because it's most people. I mean, this is new to me. So
Yeah, so the process of becoming incarnate, the process of growing ourselves and choosing to be here in this dimension, acted on by gravity and space.
yeah.
And so there's something about going through the different aspects in terms of embodiment that is an opportunity to reclaim our power, our empowerment, and our ability to make choices about being here and how we want to do it.
Yes.
And then some.
And then some.
So we can look at a lot of the trauma that we carry, or one might carry in their bodies, is actually perceived trauma, like snapshots of the past that we carry with us and decide to allow it to inform our current situation. And so going into the embodiment of the embryo, ourselves as a developing being, can take away some of the constraints of linear time. Somehow it is very potent. There's a lot of potency in that stage of life, a lot of many things going exactly right. And in the process of embodying that, there's a way in which we can actually amend the story or our perception or embodiment of these perceived traumas and release them and move into a place of more possibility in the current moment in our adult bodies. So there's a certain way in which we can tell the story until the cows come home and be in various kinds of therapy or even do yoga poses in a certain way. Maybe someone's working with yoga in an application to certain injuries or pathologies. And if we go into the place where the bones are palatable and there's stem cells involved and we actually stay present with ourselves within that process, it seems to give us an edge on repatterning and perception.
So going way back. Wow. It's almost like I hear a cat. Do you hear a cat? Oh. I wonder if
Shall we let him in?
You can. You can let the cat in. Here, I'll hold this. Yeah.
And I happen to be an educator for estheticians and have a small business in beauty and skincare that seems to go pretty seamlessly with the meditation work and the repatterning of nervous tissue and trauma, etc. So we have a storefront in the East Village or the West Village of Manhattan in New York City. We moved from the East Village a couple of years ago. And we have a space in Santa Monica at 1617 Broadway. And I also have a treatment room here in my home. And so we've got estheticians that are trained in embodiment and in cranial sacral therapy and meditation and astrology. And so it's a holistic view on beauty and reclaiming our power and choice in our aging process.
So when you sent me that podcast that you did, wasn't it a podcast?
I did send you a podcast.
Right. And it was about beauty.
Yeah, from the Divine Through Line.
I did not know that. I looked at it and I thought, oh, this is like makeup tips.
Yeah, or otherwise you would have listened to it.
Well, I may have. If I had known it was
like
this.
90 minutes long.
Yeah. Well, I didn't. I think I listened to the beginning. Now I'm telling you the whole truth here. I listened to the beginning and there was something about like fashion or something that something like that. I didn't give it a fair shot. And I thought,
we lost you in the beginning.
You did. Only because there's so much of that sort of outward appearance kind of stuff that's on television and in the media that turns me off. So I thought, well,
that's why it's called Beauty 2.0.
Had I known, I would have. Maybe I'll go listen to it.
I didn't name it. That's Sri Mate's podcast, and she's a client and dear friend. And she also, her podcast is focused on music.
Okay.
And so she had me dig out some old recordings. I'm a songwriter, and so that song is also me
Okay.
resurfaced. And so, yeah.
Okay.
that's it.
Well, see, I saw a picture of two women, and I saw Beauty 2.0, and I go, this is not anything that is in my
You
wheelhouse.
didn't realize that you were going to be having the same conversation.
No,
shortly.
I didn't. I didn't. That was me making a judgment based on a photograph and a
Snapshot.
snapshot
Mm-hmm.
and a couple of words.
Yeah, so the nervous system tends to do that. It's a tracking device, and it recapitulates and tries to put things in places where it can control things, and then
Yeah.
So what we're suggesting here in this work is that there are other body systems, that there's a lot possible, and that things are not as they appear to be.
As many times as that's proven true, I still have a tendency to go to what I know, to go backwards, to go to judgment. It's, I'm super judgmental a lot of the time. And maybe I'm more or less than other people. I don't really know, but I think I am. I think I'm making judgments constantly.
And this is an amazing awareness to have, because it can lead to the fears. So at the end of the judgment, the fears are pulling the strings. So you can always ask yourself, who is the imbalance that's calling the shots here?
Mm-hmm.
And so, again, where are we making our choices from?
Yeah, I think that's probably why I like the meditation, because there's no fear in those moments. It just goes away.
And that's the point, is if we focus on the fear and look at it, and there's enough fear highlighted, and we just sit with it, it actually does disappear. And that's why it's always trying to hide. Whereas if we focus on love and focus on the heart, then that energy accumulates and radiates and becomes more.
I'm worried about that cat knocking this thing over. Go on.
It's a valid concern at
Yeah.
this point. So there's a lot of different ways we can take the conversation when we start to talk about embodiment and our energy systems. And one of the stories I share often in the circle is when I was a young adult, when I was 19, I was studying Ayurveda at the Ayurvedic Institute, and Dr. Ladd, whom I went on to work with at his institute in Albuquerque, there was one night where there was a woman in the back row just going off about the apple cider vinegar craze. And she was just like, but it's good for this, or but this. And Dr. Ladd and Ayurveda stand with the like increases like, and that the actions of apple cider vinegar can also promote inflammation and certain fermented foods, etc. And so I'll always remember that he answered her many, many questions with a question. Who in that pitta body of yours is asking the question?
What do you say? Pitta? What does that mean?
So he's suggesting that it was the imbalance of her fiery nature that wanted so badly for this to be true.
Mm-hmm.
That the apple cider vinegar was good for her. And Ayurveda continues to ask for who, when, and make it a more contemporary relationship to the elements.
So you studied that medicine also, huh?
Yes.
Yeah. Wow, you've got a lot of stuff you've done, huh? A seeker. A constant seeker. Good.
There's a lot to learn.
Yeah, there really is.
Yeah.
And not a lot of time to do it.
Yeah, I feel very inspired.
So is there literature on this embryology besides the medical piece? Like when you're talking about it, like what you're talking about?
Yeah, so Bonnie Bainbridge Cohen is coming out with an embryology book that can make this work a little bit more accessible than just what's currently available. That said, in the latest edition of her book, Sensing, Feeling, and Action, there's a section of on embryology.
Okay, because I know people that listen to this are curious, so they like to, when they hear about something, I try to give them something to go find.
Yeah, so her website is the schoolforbodymindcentering.com, and you can buy the materials online there. I
I would never even associate trauma with skin tissue. Would not ever.
Is it starting to make a little more sense to you now?
A little bit,
Mm-hmm.
only because you're delivering it in a way that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
If I read it, it would not make sense.
But it's true that there's
Yeah.
something about being in the same room together
Yeah.
that gives that transmission of the nervous system, the perceived trauma, the timing of tissue, and how it's landing. So when you ask what kind of movement are we doing with the clients that are coming for movement sessions, that a lot of the times what we're doing is developmental movements that can help establish reception inside of the body for repatterning relationally. So if there's something going on relationally that's like, I keep running into this and recapitulating this pattern with my boyfriend or my spouse, and it happens to have to do with space, negotiating boundaries around space, there are actually developmental movements that we can do on the floor, crawling, doing different spatial relationship strengthening skills that can help the client have different perception and awareness around those behavioral patterns and choices.
Yeah, I was going to say, is there crawling? That was going to be my question.
Yep. We work with all ontogenetic development, so the whole first year, so it's not just embryology.
Well, isn't the first way that babies relate to the world is through their mouth?
Yeah, mouthing.
Yeah, because I mean, that's all you can do when you're a baby is just kind of go.
Yeah, rooting for the tit.
Yeah, whatever that. Yeah, it's a good job.
It takes all of their energy.
Yeah,
like that's
and so
first order of business.
Yeah, so that sort of that the mouth as a tactile organ is the thing that a baby relates to the world first. It's how it connects to the mother, and it's really all can't move around other than just sort of stretch and yawn and cry and that stuff.
Yeah, they reach with their mouth, sometimes way more organized than the arms, because the arms haven't found midline yet, and they're it's fascinating development, and our human bodies have so much information in them, and there's so much possibility. In fact, just this week I have a client who is injured in an accident and has spinal cord injury and is paralyzed, and it's amazing what's possible in terms of his embodiment and his recovery. It's so inspiring, and in fact he's so inspired. And that's the reason why he's developing so rapidly in terms of recovery.
Physical recovery?
Physical recovery, because of his perception about what's possible, and that he's celebrating his gains with great enthusiasm.
That's so great to hear, because it always seems, the sort of conventional Western doctors will give you very fixed ideas about what your possibilities are. As in, you'll never walk again. You're going to be this way for, you have 6 months to live. Those kinds of proclamations.
We continue to give our power over, our creative potential and our power over to the system or to the one in the white coat. And it affects our choice making. Or if we give our power away, then we're kind of just at effect.
I always say there's nothing more dangerous than an expert.
if you're not radiating.
Yes. If you're just accepting of what somebody else might tell you.
And then we're talking.
Information's good, but it's not the end. It's not the whole package.
And this brings us back to judgment, and also our belief systems, and like our belief in beliefs and how limiting that can be. And it comes back to attachment to form and identity.
Yeah. I had just on a very simple level, I had a knee injury. And I was having a lot of pain in one of my knees. So I went to this orthopedic surgeon, and they did an MRI on my knee. And he pushed on it, and it really hurt. And he said, let's schedule the surgery because, you know, you have a torn meniscus. So then I went to a chiropractor that I knew, you know, and she said to me, well, why don't you do the rehab you would do after a surgery before the surgery and see if that helps? And so I started to do certain exercises and stretches and different strengthening things around the area. That was, I don't know, 15 years ago. I've never had surgery. I don't have any knee pain at all. Just it was just, you know, had I listened to this guy, I would have been cut, and who knows if it would have worked. I mean, and
the trauma.
Yeah, because you can always have surgery. You can always go do that. That was sort of, I remember thinking, okay, always make that the absolute last resort.
Yeah, particularly because of the anesthesia and all of the complications that can happen. And I think that our Western medicine model and allopathy has such amazing things to offer, particularly in terms of emergency care. And I have a lot of respect for the technology, and I'm so grateful that we have this option.
Oh, it's great stuff. When you need it, it's fantastic.
Yes.
Yeah. But it isn't always the way.
Preventative is a good choice, and our society doesn't at this time really support preventative measures.
Yeah, I'm very cautious with those kinds of situations. When I'm told something, I always look for another, you know, what else is going on out there.
Yeah, and that's why having these choice of the more and more natural doctors coming forth, and people that are interested in harm reduction and also preventative medicine and cleanses and teaching, like educating people about how to use this equipment that we've been given in terms of our bodies. And it's beautiful that that's more and more prevalent these days. Yeah,
I remember many years ago just even attempting to talk about this stuff, and people, you'd just be put into the weird category, you know. I remember going to someone's home, and I had made my own salad dressing out of some ingredients, and that one of the people at this dinner that I was at, because it was not in a bottle that had a label on it, would not even try it. He was scared. It scared him. He's like, no. I go, well, just try it. It's just, you know, I don't even know what was in it. Yeah, it was like olive oil and some lemon and some herbs. That's all it was. It was nothing. And he goes, no, I'm not going to, I can't.
It's not co-signed by the man.
I was shocked. I was like, you're kidding me. You're kidding me. And he goes, no, I'm not going to do it. I mean, that's a level of scared.
Well, it's like there's no one to sue if something goes wrong, or, you know.
It's just that it wasn't, it's like, why, it just wasn't proper. It wasn't sanctioned. It wasn't, you know, the way you do it.
Yeah, and it's like, who is the who doing you?
Yeah. Well, I kind of wrote him off after that. That was my judgment on it. I was like,
we start to see, I mean, rather than having a judgment, we can simply see how entrained people are into this fear.
Probably the root of most problems.
Well, I mean, bingo, you hit it right on the head. It's like that is the root of all. That's the ego. It's fear. And it's self-generating and self-perpetuating, and it will do anything not to be seen for what it is. So the fear comes up with elaborate plans and schemes and outfits and stories, and we dress ourselves in it, and then you end up with this man with the salad dressing phobia, where it's like, but all of these stories, I've spent all of this energy buying into this, and I can't go back now because of my investment into all these belief systems. Yeah. And so we're just going to keep going with it.
Amazing to have evidence, and you see it in politics all the time now, especially evidence of a belief system being incorrect. And it's like, but it has to stay correct, so I'm going to change
We
what
set
the
it on,
evidence is.
yeah, it's like we set it on record, so therefore there's no going back now. We just have to keep proving that we're right. And that's why any belief in beliefs at all leaves us at risk of being entrained, because it's like a belief in one, a belief is like a belief in all of them. And what's interesting to ponder from this perspective is the paradox of life, and that things are not as they seem. And the more comfortable I can become with things not being as I know them to be through my sense organs, or how I've been told that they should be, and I can really move forward and meet each moment and get more information from each moment, and more living out of each moment, if I'm not subscribing my energy system to beliefs in general.
That's a tough one in terms of training your mind to allow that to be the case.
Just snap out of it.
Yeah, I mean, because my first reaction is, well, then what am I going to believe in? And
I got to believe in something.
In
Who
something.
am I? Well, what if
Right.
if you don't?
Yeah.
It's like just even believing that you're Bob and I'm Sadie. Well, if we don't have that, we don't have anything, and then we're gonna die. And it's like, oh my God,
That's
maybe
what
we are dead. You know, it's like the existential.
right, and what's
seeps
real
in.
and what's not real, and
Mhm.
then you drive yourself kind of nuts.
And
So,
so
some
that-
degree of that probably is necessary for survival, I would imagine. Just
Well, this is where we get into the conversation about the healthy fear.
yeah,
And that's why I'm talking about how comfortable can we be? How grounded can we be in space? How grounded can we be in spaciousness? And how spacious can we be in the ground? How much can we allow presence without having to control it? That's really what we're talking about.
mm-hmm.
So the more comfortable we can be with not knowing what's going on, or not having to have an opinion, or having to have a personality, or liking something, like I really like chocolate more than vanilla, and I'm a chocolate person, or I'm a dog person. It's like all of this addiction to identity and form.
Right.
And the more we can step forward and just be like, okay, I'm having a phenomena happening. This is like, and it doesn't mean that we can't be functional within the context of society. In fact, we will have an edge when it comes to being able to not only perceive information, but have access to information. So more access in the moment to information in general. And this is where psychic skills and being able to process more information, because we release judgment, we release the framework altogether, so that we can actually see what's going on beyond the surface.
This woman who was telling another friend of mine that she was able to she was dating this guy who had really bad headaches, migraines, and she would massage his head and move her hands around. No training or anything like that. It's just could do it. And she said, I knew I would take his headache away. I just knew I would do it, and I would do it, and I would do it over and over again. And I've been able to do this kind of thing my whole life, but I've put it to the side as being something that I either shouldn't do, or is not important, or if I tell people that I can do this, they'll look at me a certain way. And it's a gift that she's put to the side her entire life.
It sounds like it's a gift that she came here with, and to understand that it can also be a learned skill of being present with each other, of allowing our bodies to communicate and support each other in a way that doesn't require us to give over our power to someone else's energy system.
Yeah.
And so it's possible for all of us to work on our own bodies and to learn how to work on each other, to help each other, and more like serve each other, to be in service of the greater good and humanity.
Now, when I leave here today, Is there something that maybe that you tell your people when you're working with them, to an exercise to do as they move into the world for the week, or just sort of like a little gift of what maybe I'll do when I walk out the door and look for this week, or
Sure.
yeah.
And you can start before you get out the door, just as we're winding down the conversation or the interview, that we can stay inside our bodies and allow our consciousness to track. It's like allow ourselves to track the process of transition, so that as we take the headphones off and put the equipment away to observe any shifts in our body-mind relationship and how we're speaking to each other, how we move out of the session. And so there's a clear, like when you first knocked on the door and I was with a client, I took a moment because I wanted to close the session in a certain way, just to say, is this an okay place to pause and we feel okay? Are there any lingering questions? Okay, we're going to close the circle. Right. And then after the circle is closed, or after the session is closed, we're still in the same room. We're still relating. It's just that we're relating in a different way. And so once we pause the recording equipment, to observe that process of how we're relating to each other, and how you're relating to the room and to yourself as you walk out the door and get into your car. Just allowing that.
I'm going to do that, because I have a tendency, I think a lot of people do, is, I'm in the moment and I'm doing this and I'm totally present. I'm not ahead of myself.
Yeah, I feel that.
But when we finish and I start packing the equipment, I will be thinking, I will be not packing the equipment in the moment. I know this is what I think. Had we not talked about this, I will be at the next thing maybe an hour from now, which will be, as I'm packing, I will be thinking about picking up my daughter at school and the drive over. I won't be present.
And there's certain ways in which putting ourselves into linear time limits our creative potential, and also limits the ways in which we're protecting our energy system.
Yeah.
So there's no reason why we wouldn't be able to have a vision and hold the vision about what we're looking to create next to ourselves. What I'm curious about is, where are you in your body?
Right this moment?
Yeah.
When you say, where am I in my body, do you mean where am I noticing? It's always the same place. It's always in the throat and the chest is where I have tightness. Always. And shoulders. It's like that upper body is where if I have any tension, that's where it is. But when you said that, it was my throat. And I don't know if it's because I'm talking, or that's where I'm holding certain emotions.
And even the awareness, so certainly we could in a session go through the processing of what's holding there, and see what information lies there for you in terms of your own development, and what questions you're holding, what intentions you're working with. As a practice of simply being aware, it will change how you're experiencing the next phase of your day. So it's like thinking, like having a vision, or knowing what the next piece is, getting into the car.
Yeah.
Is different if we stay in our bodies and stay connected to the cellular fluid, the cellular breath, the way the sensations are in our body, even if it's pain or even if it's stagnation. And we can still be aware of those pieces. It doesn't slip us into the linear time landscape. So we can stay present and still understand that you will be going to pick up your daughter and that you'll be going to the car. But that there's a way in which our bodies are still registering each other, and you're registering yourself, and that you're with yourself as you step out of the house.
I love when I can do that. And when I forget and I get ahead of myself, I don't like living like that.
There's a different response in terms of your hormones. So whether or not you like it or you don't like it, it does create a different landscape inside the body.
Well, I'm going to try to be really aware as I'm packing this equipment that that's what I'm doing in that moment, and that's it. That I'm not. And
you can still be aware
speeding
that you're
time up.
Yeah, and you're packing the equipment so that you can go pick up your daughter.
Yeah.
You're not already on the road.
No.
So it's different, and it feels different if we become sensitive to that.
Well, thank you so much for talking to me.
You're welcome.
And I am going to come to one of your Monday nights. Is there a website or something people can go to find out more about you and what you do?
The project is called Take Care, and it can be found on the internet at takecarebody.com.
Okay. Takecarebody.com.
And there's a newsletter there, and I wrote a few things for the newsletter about the springtime. So anyhow, please be in touch if you have any other questions, or let me know how you're doing.
Thanks so much. All right. Have a wonderful afternoon.
You too.
And I will. I'm going to turn it off now.
Okay. Peace.
Thanks.
Peace.
Okay. That was Sadie Adams. Boy, did I enjoy talking to her, and I enjoyed her fireplace. It was nice sitting there, even though the fire wasn't on. Made me want to go back just for that. But the meditation thing sounds fantastic, and I'm going to go back and check that out. What an interesting person. And I want to thank you all for listening to The Exploding Human. It means a lot to me that there's people interested in a lot of the same stuff I am, and the listenership going up, which I appreciate. And thanks for coming to The Exploding Human. I'm Bob Nickman. Come back. Thanks.